tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled is filmmaker Suzanne Khardalian and actress Aria Alpert. Aria Alpert comes from a musical background. Her father is musician Herb Alpert, and her mom is singer Lonnie Hall. Aria didn't follow in their footsteps, but she took her own path to the stage. Actress Aria Alpert was born and raised in Los Angeles. After she graduated from Crossroads School, she moved to New York to pursue a career. Did you go right into acting school, Aria?
Kind of, yeah. I went to a small school called HB Studios that was started.
Berghoff?
Yeah, yeah.
Is it hard to get into a school like that?
No, anyone, truck drivers.
Really?
Oh yeah, I mean it was $8 a class.
Oh,
And
is that right?
Yeah.
Well, then why did you go there? Why didn't you stay? Here you are in Hollywood. Why didn't you take acting here?
I did, actually.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did for a very short time, and then I just wanted to escape Los Angeles. I never really felt comfortable in the city, so I've always wanted to move to New York.
Really? We love Los Angeles.
I know, but I kind of went to college. My college was New York City.
Were you happy there?
Very.
And you went to cooking school?
Yeah, years later, I went to cooking school.
It was after you were taking acting lessons?
Yeah, it was after I kind of did some independent films, and I did some commercials, and I did a couple of theater pieces, and then I've always loved cooking, and I went to cooking school, and I actually learned more about acting in cooking school than I had in some classes.
Was it fun?
Very fun, yeah.
And you were also a yoga teacher.
So yoga teacher, I worked specifically with people with disabilities, so I would do private yoga, and I blended in food, and so it was more of a
Did you really?
nutrition, yeah.
Well, why didn't you pursue that? That sounds like it would have been fun.
I did. Every time I tried to pursue that career, acting just kept knocking on my door, and I couldn't, I couldn't not listen to it. It was just persistent.
So you were pretty focused into where you were going. When I heard your name, Aria, I thought, oh, I'm getting an opera singer as a guest today.
Yeah, no.
Did you ever think of that?
Never. I love opera, but I never thought of being a singer. No.
Never?
Never.
And this name, Aria?
Yeah, no.
Do people say that?
All the time, yeah, all the time. Am I a singer? Acting is musical in its own way. It could be very improvisational, like jazz. So.
But music was in your background, so.
Yeah.
But can you play an instrument? Do you do anything?
I dance.
Well, yoga, right?
Yeah,
Does it help?
Yeah. But yeah, no, I could probably sing if I put my heart into it, but it was never something that I wanted to pursue.
Okay, we've covered all of that. Let's get to the big break. The big break was on stage, right?
Yeah.
What was that?
Well, I had two. The first equity show that I got was a Shakespeare play, Twelfth Night, and I was Viola, and it was my first real big part, and it was a 1,200-seat theater, and it was in Ohio.
Really?
And it was terrifying, but it was wonderful. It was just a wonderful, wonderful
How
thing.
did you get that part?
Auditioned.
Where, in New York?
In New York.
And then you went on the road?
And then I went on the road, and then I got a play with Alec Baldwin in Sag Harbor in Long Island.
Oh, it was in a playhouse up
Yeah, Bay Street Theater. So.
And how long were you
wonderful.
in that?
We opened the day after September 11th.
Oh.
So it was a very strange time, especially in New York. But
people wanted, after that, I couldn't wait to get into a museum or go to a concert because you needed some kind of food for your soul.
Absolutely. And we were all, I didn't think we were going to go on. I was like, this should not happen. But fortunately, it was a comedy, so
It was?
Yes. So people would wait backstage and were thanking us. I felt like I was in vaudeville in a way, because we got them out of their house. And
What was the name of it?
Gross Points.
And did you know the writer?
No, I didn't.
And how was it working with Alec
Oh, he
Baldwin?
was magnificent. He was wonderful.
Was he generous?
Very generous, just such a wonderful actor, very funny. I didn't think he was as funny as he was, but he was very funny.
And what about the director at that time?
Yeah, he was good. His wife owned the theater,
Oh.
so it was a very sweet little theater.
That's great.
Yeah.
Then you came back to LA.
And I came back, fell in love. Was never coming back. I was done.
Yes, I'm glad you said that you had to have your college in New
I
York.
was done, and fell in love, and now we just got married, and I've been back for about 2.5 years.
Did you do the Allison Anders movie when you were here?
In New York.
Oh, you did it in New
Yeah, I
York.
did
How was it
small-
working with someone like a small independent
She's wonderful.
director, right?
She's such an actor's director, you know.
Why is that?
Well, you would be doing a scene, and the minute she says cut, you know, you hear her crying and coming back and giving you a hug, and because she was so emotionally into what you were doing, you know, if it was a
She was so good.
Yeah, I mean, she was so loving. She's got such an amazing heart, and she's so about creation that.
What was the name of that film?
Things Behind the Sun.
And was anyone in it that you knew or who have become known?
Well, God, I'm blanking on all of these names right now.
That's quite all right. I can't remember a thing
I can't
myself.
remember anything. I'm forgetting all of I know their first names, but I don't know their last names.
Well, which one do you prefer, stage or film?
I love the stage. I mean, the stage is such an actor's medium, and I haven't really had the opportunity to do much film. I've done a little independence, but
Have you done TV?
never.
Really? That's interesting because stage is so New York.
Yeah,
Except we have hundreds of small theaters in Los Angeles that are just great.
yeah, yeah. I was like, why would I do a play in LA? But the play that we're doing now is a role that I've wanted to do for years.
Oh, it is. So you are doing a play. You're doing it at the Century City Playhouse,
Yep.
and the name of it is Nora.
Yep.
And it's the Blue Angel Theater Group, and it's a story, an adaptation from Ibsen,
From
A Doll's House. So tell us what the story is.
Yeah. Well, it's, you know.
You're Nora.
I'm Nora.
Okay, go on.
And Ibsen wrote it in like 1879, and it was basically a woman's journey into how to find her independence in herself, first in herself, but really in the role that she is in her family, with her husband and her children, and where she fits in, and it's really a woman's journey into herself.
How did you prepare for this?
Well, I started working on Nora in New York about 4 years ago.
Did the Shakespeare work help you? Because doing the classics? I mean,
Sure, yeah. It's so juicy. I mean, you work on Shakespeare, you work on Ibsen, you work on any great writer, and you read it 100 times and you still find
something
so
new.
much.
Huh?
Yeah.
How were you preparing, even back in New York, for this?
Just immersing myself in the world, in her mind, just reading it over and over, working on scenes.
Were you picturing what you would look like, costume-wise?
Yeah. She was she's very coquettish, but she's like a cat. She's like a feline that jumps on the table and jumps off.
And do you have that freedom
Yeah.
with your director?
Definitely.
And how's your director approach?
He's an
the
actor's
role?
director as well, so he likes to have actors find their own character first, rather than tell them what he wants them to do.
Oh, is that so? You go and you read the script. You decide. Well, you've been reading it anyway, but you decide what you want to do.
Or
And
you
then what
kinda-
does he do? How does he make you work?
Just an exploration rather than being rigid and, going his way about things. It's just expressing, like improvisation.
Really?
Playing around.
But you have to know every word, don't you? I mean, you have to know your.
You have to know every word, but the process is to find that without having to sit down and memorize it. It's just kind of to feel free to do what you want to do and have the script in hand and not feel like you have to say everything right.
Oh, I see.
So.
How is it working in New York opposed to LA?
Well, I'll let you know after the run if we have anyone in the seats.
But you've been rehearsing, so you know.
Oh, yeah. Well, New York
How do you feel on stage?
At home.
The same, right?
Yeah. I love being on stage.
What about the cast? How large is it?
There's only 5 of us.
Because this is a pared down version, isn't it? Bergman did
Bergman adapted Ibsen's A Doll's House. So it's really, I mean, it's normally a 2-act play, and it's normally a 3.5-hour night in the theater, and this is 80 minutes.
Oh, it's really pared down.
It's really pared down, and he cut out the children and he cut out the maid. And it's just, the meat of it is there. You know?
Bergman did that.
Bergman did that.
So your director, Rod Menzies, has gone along with it, or has he changed things too?
He's changed things, I've changed things. Yeah, it's kind of a soup. We kind of all change things.
When you were cast, did you know the other actors?
Mm-mm.
So you just get on stage and work together?
Yeah, we auditioned together, and they're wonderful actors. Very professional. They've been working a lot on stage.
Are you still taking acting lessons here?
Not right now. No, I'm doing the show, so
Will
that's.
will you continue taking acting lessons?
Oh, always.
And then what about dance and yoga and all that?
I do yoga pretty much every day in my home, and dance. I love dance. I love more Afro-Cuban and Brazilian dance. So.
And do you paint?
I used to.
I'm trying to think of all these things that run in your family, music, painting, and you're going totally the opposite.
Kind of the opposite, yeah. I used to paint.
Do you think it's a rebellion?
It's all in the same family, I think.
I think so,
I mean,
too.
it's artistic. It's a soup. It's everything. It's
yeah. And talking about soup, you're such a chef.
I cook.
What's your favorite soup before we leave?
Oh, my
Do you
favorite
make soup?
all the time. Well, all the time. My favorite right now is split pea, vegetarian split pea.
And how do you make it?
Well, you got to make the stock.
Yes.
Your homemade stock.
With?
With leeks. I'm a big leek person, and carrots and bay
To make
leaf
the stock?
To make the stock, and then just simple. So I'm learning the simpler the better. With acting, with life, with cooking. If you got too many ingredients, it just doesn't work. So simple and fresh organic ingredients. That's
it?
That's it.
When do you throw the lentils in?
Well, in the beginning.
In the beginning?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I get the recipe right.
Okay, I'll write it down.
Thank you. Thanks, Aria.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for watching the Joan Quinn Profiles today. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Filmmaker, director, writer, Suzanne Khardalian was born and raised in Beirut, Lebanon. She studied journalism in Beirut and in Paris, where she became the editor of the French Armenian daily newspaper. Was your career planned to be a journalist?
Oh, yeah, I guess so, because I remember being a child and making papers, newspapers.
Oh, you for yourself?
Yes. Trying to sell it to my friends in the class and taking pictures of people selling it back.
You were?
Yeah.
So you were your own editor early on.
I was.
You know, I did the same thing.
Really?
Yes, when I was very young, I was worked in. I made the newspaper for the school.
Well, I've been at school, of course, but then I liked having my independent paper. I was doing things and trying to convince people to buy them. So I didn't have many buyers, but I was trying hard.
So when you got to Paris, you had your own. Did you work for other newspapers, or did you go right into this?
Actually,
Armenian?
before coming to Paris, I used to work radio stations as well. I had my radio program.
Oh, I see.
I was, and then I got involved in the news journalism. So I was mostly news journalistic when I moved to Paris, and I decided to deepen on that.
How long were you in Paris?
Well, I lived in Paris about 15 years.
And And did your career start changing while you were in Paris?
Oh well, I'm a restless soul. You know, I have been doing so many things. Actually, I've started studying at the American University in Lebanon, and I was having biology as major. So I have a master's degree in biology.
Well, what were you going to do with that?
I don't know. I thought that life was so exciting. I mean, biology was something that was the most important thing. And I remember reading the papers of the time. I mean, the Time magazine, you know, all these things, Newsweek, and all these fantastic articles about space and biology in space. I was amazed, and I thought that there lies the future.
Yeah, you were at the American University, so were you taking your classes in English?
Yeah, of course, of course.
And then when you were in Paris and you were the editor,
I was taking them in French.
You were
I was at the university taking my lessons in French, and then of course at the paper it was both Armenian and French.
But in Armenian, did you write in Armenian?
I wrote in Armenian as well because I used to work for Armenian papers. So I've tried lots
So the
of
paper
things.
was published in Armenian, not in French.
Both languages.
Oh, it
It was
was.
a bilingual.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, it had two sections, Armenian and French.
Oh, but now you talked about biology, you talked about journalism, you talked about the news. Then
Yes.
did you ever, and radio?
Yeah.
And then you're really renowned as a filmmaker, I would
Exactly.
say.
Yeah. With time, it became clear that the daily rush you have as an editor or working for a newspaper was not the thing I wanted to do, because I wanted to go deep into things, and those things take time. And then making documentaries became my really passion, because there it is, there you have the chance to come into people, work with them on a longer time space, and then really tell stories that otherwise you wouldn't be able to tell.
But with the documentary, is that your basic field, documentaries?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I know you've made independent films, but have they all been in the
They're all
documentary genre?
documentaries, yes.
Well, that really goes along with your journalism, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
How do you get started with the film? Do you write the story first and then go out to...
Of course, you always have a story in the beginning that you've written and that you imagine that it's going to be like that. But the fantastic thing about documentaries, it doesn't help, because once you are in real life, nothing matters. Life is itself. It has its own rules.
It goes its own way.
On its exactly, and then and that is fascinating, because you expect something, but then in the end you're out there with something completely different, and I like that.
So you do actually, you have the idea, you write a script more or less.
Yeah.
Do you make a list of who you're going to go to, where you're going to shoot?
Absolutely, because the way we work is that our projects take time. I mean, minimum, we're talking about 2 years.
You have a collaborator. You have a
exactly. When you say we, I'm used to it. We're a team, actually. Me and Pio Holmquist, who's at the same time my husband.
And the father of your daughter.
And the father of my daughter, exactly. And we work together. We've been working together since '88.
And he was a filmmaker prior to your getting together?
He has been in filmmaking from the beginning.
I see.
Yeah.
That was
He's
his
been
profession.
a fashion photographer in the beginning.
Oh, he
But
was?
Yeah.
Oh, so he went into something different too. But fashion tells a story.
Exactly.
If you do the
exactly. I mean, documentaries tell stories.
That's
Whenever
right.
you meet a person, I mean, you just don't meet that person. There's a whole story behind that person.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, you've seen the films.
You did Lion from Gaza.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, because that must have been tough going into Gaza and filming.
Well, one thing we do, or we have done much more than we usually do now, is that go to difficult places where there are conflict places.
That's what you want to do?
Exactly. That's what we do. Places where there are conflicts, where the media is there when the conflict is very hot, but then everybody disappears once it gets cooler a little.
I see.
So what we do is that we stay behind and then just go behind the titles of the news, just go behind come into the ordinary life of the people, so that you can tell the real story, not
And
just
then
the news.
are they afraid to talk to you, or are they readily available?
No. Whenever you come to a conflict place, people are always scared to talk to you openly,
side,
because it depends where you are, of course, but usually they're very cautious, and that takes time, because you have to let them trust you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the Lion of Gaza was about what?
The Lion of Gaza is about a Palestinian who used to be very active while in Palestine, and then he was expelled, and he came to Poland, where he studied. He got married there, and then somehow he was expelled from Poland as well, and then ended up in Sweden.
Oh, so you had a connection with him where you live in Stockholm, right?
Absolutely. So what we did was that tried to find him and wondered what happened to this guy who was in Sweden, a very silent, a very scared person. Just the opposite of what he used to be when we first met him in Gaza.
I see. Yeah. And then Opium to Chrysanthemums. What was that about?
Okay, that story goes to my husband's years, because when he was 19, he took his jacket and left home for 2 years, never came back. And what he did was that he went around in Southeast Asia, as many young people used to do at that period. And he came to this village in Thailand, northern Thailand, and met these monk people. And he became friends with this chief of the village. So after many years, we heard that the king of Thailand had special projects for these minorities, and wondered what happened to these people. So actually he went back and located him, and he was still there. He was alive, old, but he was still alive. And we decided, once we heard their story, that they had made this fantastic trip from growing opium into growing flowers.
Oh, I see.
That's why we came back and told that story, because nobody tells that story.
Was there a drug part of it as well, or not?
You mean now?
No, at that time.
At that time, very much they were only growing opium, nothing else.
For drug,
exactly.
Just for the
not for themselves, because they were selling it at the same time.
Were they exporting it, or was it being?
I don't know. I mean, you have to be in the history of the monk people to know that they were actually working with the Americans. And through them, they were selling opium to the American soldiers.
So it was open.
It was open. It was
sold.
nothing, exactly.
I see.
We have pictures when people come to pick up the opium from that time.
Because they weren't afraid.
No. They were wet. I mean, they were armed. They knew that it was dangerous, but that's what they did.
What about the Armenian prince? And then I'm going to get into the next story. We'll get into Armenia now.
Yeah, well, Armenian prince is about, again, it's like fate brings you. I mean, you meet people without knowing really who you're meeting. I remember we were at this party, and then in a corner was sitting a very old lady, silent, and then nice looking and very interested. And I approached, and then she said, "You know what? I think I have a very interesting story for you."
She did?
Yes, I said, "Okay." You know, people come and tell you, "I have a fantastic story to tell you. You have to make a film about that."
Yeah.
But then I said, "Yes, of course," and I listened politely. She's a Finnish, actually, a Finnish living in Sweden. And she told me by that time that my husband was a collaborator of Stalin.
Oh,
yeah.
How interesting.
And that in the end he defected and all that.
But there was a lot of history because...
There was a lot of history. And then I said, my God, this is history. And there's this little lady, and she's telling me something that has actually happened to her.
Yeah.
And the fantastic thing about documentary is this. We thought we were going to explore his real story, the story that the wife was telling, Yata in this case. And it came out that this guy, okay, he was a collaborator of Stalin, but at the end he was actually in a kind of economic fraud. He was taking money, he was misusing the money of the, and then he had ended up in prison.
So
and
we had
such a hard time to tell this story to this old lady who was 82, because for her, her husband was this fantastic, person with the,
Oh, that's great. But that's how things unwrap, don't they, unroll? The latest documentary that you made is called I Hate Dogs.
Yeah.
It came actually after Back to Ararat, but which was made in 1988 in Soviet Armenia. And but I want to talk about I Hate Dogs. How did you find this man? He's 99 years old.
We have a talent in finding people like that. That's what we do. No, actually, I believe in fate. We were in France having our summer vacation. It's so funny, and we were just lying down reading The Guardian, and then in a very tiny article, noticed the last Armenian survivor from the Armenian genocide living in Britain had died. And I said, last one? Is it really the last one? And then we started researching, trying to locate these people if they
Because
were really.
Back to Ara was about the genocide, the Armenian genocide.
That was like, almost 20 years ago.
Yes.
And we said, okay, let's do this. It's it's really the last minutes. We have to find these people. We went around, we were looking, and we found some women. But unfortunately, their stories, I would say their stories, they were not in a state of mind that you could work with them because they were tired, some were sick, some families refused to be on the film or didn't let
But this man
was
wonderful.
He's so wonderful. I love his energy. He loves life in itself.
Yeah, and you can see that you liked him. He liked you, he
Definitely.
responded to you,
yeah.
but it was so poignant when you get to the point where you find out why I hate dogs,
Right.
because it doesn't, I hate dogs doesn't say anything about the Armenian genocide.
Absolutely, and that was the point. I mean, why should I tell people a horrible story and then probably nobody wants to listen to that? And we thought, here is this old man, he's so nice, but at the same time very bitter. Like many old people are, who say, I hate dogs, and then you wonder, oh, here's one of those guys who hates dogs,
Yeah.
And lots of people react to that because, people who care for animals don't care.
Exactly. That's why the
it
title
triggers a question, yeah.
I thought the title was very gutsy to
Yeah.
use that title.
Exactly.
But when you see it, it brings tears to your eyes because of the reason that he hates
Yeah.
dogs. And your work was so beautiful in that.
Thank
and
you.
the music was
Thank you.
beautiful. Do you pick the music?
Yeah.
You do it all. It was great. And would you show that in schools?
Well, I would like that. Yes, of course, definitely. Because, as I said, for me, as much as it is the story of the Armenian genocide, it is as much as the story of a human being and the art of survival, I would say.
Yes,
Look at this tiny boy, 9 years old, and what a fantastic life he made afterwards.
Yeah, that was great. Suzanne, you're going back to Stockholm, but
Yeah, I
thank
will.
you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
And thanks for watching the Joan Quinn Profiles. Keep writing to 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles 90017.